Absolutely incredible. Let's move to the last part of our conversation. Some questions that our Sports MVT online community sent through to us. And I would like to start off with this question from Monique. And she simply says, what is your wish for women's basketball in South Africa?
My wish is for women to really find their own space and carve out a space for themselves in the sport, which I love and which I think is a lot of fun, and to be part of carving out that space, and for the national teams to really thrive, because I think when our national teams thrive, the sport can thrive as well.
Definitely. Minnie sent through this question and she talks about the 2022 International Women's Day theme, which was #BreakTheBias. She simply asks, what does this theme mean to you?
Breaking the bias, I think that we have to, in the context of women, stop thinking about issues like GBV and women's empowerment in a very tunnel vision way, as in, we're trying to give women and girls a step up. I think that's problematic for me. I think we have to think of doing this in the concept of when we empower women and girls, and when we bring women and girls meaningfully into leadership and within our society, and change the role of women and girls, we actually better society as a whole, especially with all the problems that we face. I hope that speaks to the theme, but I think there is bias around the idea of initiatives like GBV, initiatives, on that bring women into leadership, that make it seem as though you're doing them a favor. And I think that's problematic. I think we have to really assess our value systems behind why we're bringing women and girls, why we're trying to empower them.
Definitely. This question comes through from Michael, and Michael simply says, what are your words of encouragement to young women who are interested in making a career or building a career in the sports industry?
It's funny because I knew so many Michaels when I was at UCT playing basketball. I wonder which Michael it is. Look, I think one of the things that I was very pleasantly surprised to discover when I joined the NBA was the many different ways that we can operate within the sports industry. And so all of these core functions that we traditionally see as being very corporate to business are necessary in companies like the NBA and within the sports world. So being an accountant, being a lawyer, because the sports industry is about the protection of intellectual property. And so understanding, fundamentally what that means, is you're able to then protect brand value. And so all of these different skills are required: marketing, even knowing how to play the game, broadcast production. All of these different skills are needed in the industry, and not just in basketball, in all the sports that we need to do. So I think my word of advice to all those young women who are out there trying to break into this is, don't think about this as just being a coach or a sports administrator. Those are really necessary jobs, but also other skills are required, other hard skills are required. So if you're interested in being an accountant, being a lawyer, even scientific thinking is necessary in this. So even if you did a biochemistry degree, don't think that you can't apply it to this world. There are ways that you can apply very different types of intelligence to the world of sports.
Absolutely beautiful. Let's look at this question from 𝗙ecie, and 𝗙ecie simply talks about the fact that you were a sportswoman who played basketball and now you work in the field of administration in basketball. She says, what are the lessons that you apply in your workplace right now that you learned as a sports person?
So perseverance, I think it was definitely a huge part of what I brought into this. And it's really a very intense job, especially operating across 54 countries and truly trying to operate across 54 countries. And I think one has to be, very strong-willed and thick-skinned to do what you need to do. Teamwork is extremely important. Cultural understanding, being a player and playing for the national team and playing in different spaces and countries and cities was really important for me to be able to adapt to different environments. And obviously teamwork, because I operate in a space, although I'm selling TV rights, it doesn't mean that I don't need to take into account what's happening in the rest of the organization and with my other departments here. We work very closely with one another and with our teams in London and New York. So all of these skills are fundamental that I brought across as from being a player into this environment.
Absolutely beautiful. Let's end off with this question that comes through from Nicoline, and she talks about gratitude. Who are you thankful for a successful career?
So I'll be very stereotypical and say I'm very thankful to my parents. My mother and father were very supportive of everything I wanted to do. My mother always thought I'd end up in a wheelchair because I had so many injuries in basketball. But both of them were extremely supportive. They also always sacrificed their time to look after my children when I'm running around the continent and helping my dear husband. And so, also, I'm extremely thankful to have a partner who really understands the fact that I need to travel as much as I do, and to my children for being so understanding of their mother running around as well. So I think my family are important to everything I do.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. That's actually the perfect way to end this conversation. Kornelia, thank you so much for joining us on the Sports MVT Insider. And of course, thank you for the amazing work that you and your team are doing to grow the sport of basketball for both men and women on the African continent. And we are wishing you and your team all the best.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're locked on to the Sport MVT Insider, a podcast for unrelenting coverage of women in sport. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I absolutely loved diving deeper into the journeys of our athletes, coaches, and administrators to get to know them a little bit better than we do. Coming up next week, we bring you another athlete, coach, or administrator, and she shares her incredible and inspiring journey with us. Keep it locked onto Sport MVT, where we celebrate women in sport.